sacrifice everything every single day, bust my balls, have a 15-person team working around the clock to help me become the best boxer possible. And
Jake Paul just got knocked out in a sparring session with Mike Tyson and immediately canceled the fight. But here's the thing. It wasn't just the embarrassment of getting floored by Tyson that got to him. Nope, it was those new rules Tyson demanded after that little meetup in the ring. You see, Tyson's been around the block a few times, like 40+ years, and he noticed a lot of things that didn't quite add up. So, when you're trying to cook up something sneaky in front of a guy who's been playing the game since before you were born and you think you'll walk away clean, yeah, that's a bit too optimistic. Now, Jake's got no choice but to face the music, and oh boy, it's not going to be a sweet tune. And this sparring session didn't just come out of the blue. It was born from a strategy, a desperate move from Jake Paul's camp after his world started spinning out of control following that chaotic press conference. This press conference struck a nerve so deep in Jake's fragile confidence that it sent shockwaves through his entire brand. And as if that wasn't enough, Mike Tyson decided to pile on by making an appearance on Logan Paul's podcast.
Get all the money. Talkers get all the attention.
Yeah.
Talkers get everything. We get a bad rap, but we get everything else.
Yeah, they do.
Now, Tyson isn't just some retired boxer talking smack for kicks. This is Iron Mike, a living legend who doesn't need to hold back. He flat out called Jake a loudmouth, who's more interested in talking trash and sniffing out dollar bills than actually stepping up in the ring. For Jake, who's built his whole persona on being the fearless, trash-talking king of the boxing world, this was a slap that stung harder than any punch he's ever taken. But let's be real. Jake Paul isn't the kind of guy who just takes a beating and walks away quietly. No, his ego took those hits like a bull seeing red. Tyson's words weren't just insults. They were daggers that sliced right through Jake's overinflated sense of self. So what does Jake do when his pride is hanging by a thread? He goes all in. He demands a sparring session with Tyson, convinced that this will be his shot at redemption, his chance to show the world and himself that he's not just some YouTuber playing dress-up as a boxer. No, Jake needed this sparring match to prove that he had what it takes to stand toe-to-toe with a heavyweight legend. This wasn't just about saving face, this was about clawing his way back to respectability.
Because your health depends on it.
Hey, you're the one that wanted 8 2-minute rounds. You want to make it 10 threes? Don't talk to me about shape. Don't talk to me about shape.
Staying.
Now Tyson, ever the crafty veteran, saw right through Jake's bravado. To him, Jake's demand wasn't just a challenge, it was an opportunity. A golden chance to see what this young pretender was really made of. Jake might have thought he was calling the shots, but in reality, Tyson was the one setting the stage. Accepting the sparring challenge was Tyson's way of luring Jake into a trap, a chance to test the kid under real pressure, to see if he could handle the heat when the gloves did the talking. Tyson knew that the ring reveals all, and a match anymore. It was a defining moment in Jake's boxing career, but even Mike's friend was concerned about this little YouTuber, and he said to Jake that,
My friend called me and said, don't hurt him, Mike. You better do that.
Wait, what? Your friend is vouching for Jake?
No, yeah, but he said, don't hurt him in the YouTuber. Don't hurt him, Mike.
now after all this, Tyson isn't about to step into the ring under the original fight terms, not after seeing what he saw. One of the biggest changes Tyson demanded? A KO-only victory rule that sent shockwaves through the boxing community. Tyson was convinced that Jake's previous TKO wins were sketchy at best, and he wasn't about to let a technicality decide the outcome of this fight. In Tyson's mind, a knockout was the only true measure of a fighter's worth, and he was determined to see if Jake could step up to the challenge. This wasn't just a rule change. It was Tyson throwing down the gauntlet, questioning Jake's legitimacy as a boxer. But Tyson didn't stop there. Knowing that Jake often leans heavily on his corner for guidance, especially when things start going south, Tyson introduced another brutal rule. No corner advice during rounds. Fighters would be on their own, forced to rely solely on their instincts and whatever training they had managed to absorb before stepping into the ring. No one to turn to, no one to bail him out when the punches started landing. This rule was designed to strip Jake of his safety nets, to see if he could survive the fight on his own merit. The psychological impact of these changes was like a hammer blow to Jake's already shaky confidence. Tyson's game plan was crystal clear. pushed Jake so far out of his comfort zone that the young fighter would either crumble or somehow find a way to rise to the occasion. This was more than just a fight. It was a mental and physical test, one that would either make Jake a true contender or expose him as nothing more than a pretender. As the days ticked by, the reality of Tyson's new rules began to set in. Jake Paul, who once strutted around like the king of the ring, was now staring down the barrel of a fight that seemed more like a nightmare. The KO-only rule meant there were no easy outs, no way to rely on a referee's mercy. And without corner advice, Jake would be alone in that ring with nothing but his instincts and whatever grit he could muster. Tyson had set the stage for a showdown that would test every fiber of Jake's being. But while Tyson was tightening the noose, Jake was left to grapple with the cold, hard truth of what lay ahead. That knockout had shaken him to his core, and these new rules? They only added to the pressure. For the first time, Jake Paul wasn't so sure of himself. The bravado, the trash talk, it was all starting to feel a little hollow. He was now facing the very real possibility that he wasn't as invincible as he had always believed.
Do you believe that I will actually beat Mike Tyson?
Yes.
You really think that you're gonna beat Mike Tyson?
Yeah. Well, I'm nervous.
When Jake Paul first got wind of the rule changes Tyson had managed to push through, it was like getting blindsided by a punch he never saw coming. It was August 25th, 2024, and Jake was in the middle of one of his typical training sessions, probably thinking he was invincible, when his manager, Nakisa Badarian, dropped the bombshell. The KO-only victory rule and the ban on corner advice during rounds hit Jake like a freight train. And not the kind you can dodge. For a guy who's always strutting around like he's untouchable, suddenly finding himself staring down a fight that was more about survival than skill was a reality check he wasn't ready for. The disbelief hit him hard, like a punch to the gut. How could this happen? Wasn't Tyson just an aging legend who should be scared of Jake's youth and strength? Turns out, Jake was wrong, very wrong. Tyson had outmaneuvered him, turning what Jake thought would be his victory lap into a potential disaster. And just like that, the panic started to set in. Jake's confidence, which had always been as loud as his trash talk, began to waver. This wasn't just a tweak to the rules. This was Tyson laying a trap that could expose every weakness Jake had been hiding under layers of bravado. Jake, never one to keep his frustrations to himself, exploded onto social media that evening. He took to Instagram stories and Twitter, unleashing a series of rants that were as much about his desperation as they were about anger. He accused Tyson of setting him up, of trying to sabotage him with these new rules. Jake painted Tyson as a bully, an old dog trying to change the game because he was scared of getting beat by a younger, stronger fighter. The posts went viral. Of course they did. It's Jake Paul we're talking about. But the reaction wasn't exactly the rally of support Jake was hoping for.
I lose faith in my generation and my peers and like us as a society and in a world just when I see that type of stuff and that type of stupidity.
As if the public backlash wasn't enough, Jake suddenly found himself in the middle of a legal storm. On August 26, 2024, just a day after his social media meltdown, his legal team, led by attorney Ariel Emanuel, started pushing back hard against the rule changes. Jake's angle? He claimed these new conditions weren't part of the original fight contract, which had been signed way back in July. According to Jake, Tyson's camp was pulling a fast one, reneging on their agreement, and the whole thing was an unfair breach of contract. Insiders started leaking details to the press, painting a very different picture. According to sources who spoke to ESPN's Mike Coppinger, Jake had initially agreed to fight on Tyson's terms without much fuss. The original contract, they said, had always included clauses that allowed Tyson to request changes based on the fighter's conditions leading up to the match. Jake, eager to land the fight and the payday that came with it, had apparently glossed over these little details. Now, those same clauses were coming back to bite him, leaving him with very little wiggle room legally. The narrative shifted fast. Instead of seeing Jake as the victim of Tyson's tricks, The public started viewing him as someone who hadn't done his homework, someone who underestimated the stakes and was now paying the price. The legal battle was no longer just about the rules. It was about Jake's credibility and his ability to handle the pressure of a fight at this level. And just like that, the gauntlet was thrown down. The world was left wondering what Jake Paul's next move would be. With the pressure mounting, every tweet, every post, and every leaked rumor only added more fuel to the fire. What was once a fight guaranteed to be a spectacle was now hanging by a thread, with Jake's reputation and career on the line.